Hello there. How you doing? October 18th, 1990 was the day that I spent on this earth looking for my firstborn. I had my third child still in high school, going to school, but I got my husband on out of work and I picked him up and we started looking all over for our firstborn child. It was a little hard. I'd found all of her pills gone and a couple of other things missing from upstairs in her bedroom. I don't give any names at all, but it was a hard day. We went through a lot of parks here in town, and then at 4:30 in the afternoon, when my son had come home, that was when I received a phone call from a business that my firstborn had worked at. There was a young man who had a letter, a note, so to speak, to him, telling him that by that time, if she hadn't been found, she was saying goodbye to him completely and the face of the earth. And this is where she would be found. And out of the kindness of his heart, he got a hold of me. He knew our telephone number well, and he called, and I went on over there and I read the note and I thanked him. Hi there, Jaws. Hi, Shannon. Thank you for coming in. And by this time, I came back home and my son was here and my husband also. I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Shannon? I'm making it through the day of October 18th, 1990. Yeah, I've tried my best to be a sweet lady. But after I had received the note, I said to my husband and son, we're going to have to go and find her because the sun is going to be going down pretty soon. And that means temperatures dropping, weather forecast is not good. And it was getting to be really windy and cooler. And I called the sheriff's department and the police department up, and they said if I needed any more support or help, let them know. We'd even take helicopters and the radar going through the area to find her. we drove on out towards that road, my husband and I. But before we got there, we came to a car accident. There was about 7 cars all piled on up, and we weren't hurt, but we aided as we did things along the way. I had a big van that we were driving. I could get 27 kids in there. I was one of the people that would go with church youth groups, and they all loved my van. But needless to say, we went up and over a curb, and we stopped and we assisted the people, helped them out until ambulances came along. And by this time, we were back out on the road. The sheriff said to go. And we got on out there, and I kept on scoping for my firstborn. And all of a sudden, I saw her lilac coat, and she was crawling on the ground. It was a hard day. I haven't been in bed since 3:30 this morning. Don't be sorry. It's just a thing that I have dealt with. And listen while I talk, because by the time I got my daughter into the van, I could tell her pupils of her eyes were enlarged to the point where you couldn't even see the color of her her eyes. She didn't even know who I was. So we took our route to the nearest hospital, and we got her there, and I told my husband, hit the ER. And we drove right on in there, and I dragged my daughter on out and brought her in, and we finally got her situated into trauma room 12. And then my husband and my son came in to the ER, and we were talking, and my husband said he needed some soda. So by 6:30 that night, I was doing CPR on my husband. He had a major heart attack, cardiac arrest on the left-hand side. My son leaped over a group of people, and I recognized a lot of them. They all had been in the car accident of that 7 pileup. So, needless to say, they let us have trauma room 1. And that was where I started to do my first rib spreading on my husband. The two doctors that my son had gotten a hold of asked me which floor I worked on. And I asked him, "What do you mean?" And I kept on working like I had been taught. So, needless to say, the one doctor who's got the same name as I do, but it's spelled differently, I remember him pretty good. He says, "Who do you know this man by?" And I go, "He's my husband." He goes and he points to the hallway. He says, "Out now." And I knew I could not stay in there then. I walked on out to the hallway. "Hi, Tiny Tim." And then I went to the desk and I knew the priest, the father chaplain for the police department, quite well. Even though it was a Thursday night, I demanded that father come immediately. He came and he helped me and my son walk through, walking into that ER as a family of 4, but leaving as a family of 2. I was so glad to have Father with me and my son. He took us to a conference room, which was not too far from the ER doors, and he helped us walk along the ways of what was going to be going on. My husband's left side of his heart had exploded to the point where there was no way of keeping him on earth. I told them to put airway on him. Father looked at me and he says, "You know all about this, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." He would want his organs given. He's got blood that can be given. He's got a rare blood type. And that's exactly what we did. So I know what honor walks are like in a hospital. And I also know what it feels like to be a worker in a hospital for honor walks and also for helping another person go through the walk of life, of helping people tell a teenager that their father is no longer alive. Father was the one who held on to me as I said my goodbyes to my husband. Plus, he helped me and my son go into trauma room 12 and tell my daughter her father was no longer on earth again. I know it's a lot of stuff. I'm leaving my live streams more or less not as a live stream for my children don't really know anything about me talking about some of these things. But as time went by that day in the conference room, Sister Agnesia came along. She and I sat and prayed. Father, help me call out to people that I knew. I have no blood relatives here in the city at that time other than my son and my daughter. Oh, you are giving me a big hug, Shannon. Don't worry. It's just something that I go through every single year since 1990. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I am almost like nonstop. I could tell you exactly which parks we went in through first because I used to have to go into those parks and look for other teenagers if they ran away. But needless to say, after the father, the police chaplain, helped me get the lines open in the conference room, Illinois, northern part of Illinois, Shannon. So I'm not too far from the state line of Illinois and Wisconsin. But afterwards, when the phone lines were open and I started calling friends that I knew of, I called one girlfriend that I had known since 1980. And then I called another lady that I worked with, and she was from the Dakotas. And she and I had gone through quite a bit of working together. And they didn't answer. And then I remembered it was choir night at church. We all were involved in our church choirs and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a church going person, but I also am a person who is a lady, a human. But finally, I thought to myself, I'm going to call my boss up. And he had always told me, Lynn, don't call me boss, call me your friend. And I called the telephone number that I knew so well. And I've already visited that place, my subway that I loved so much. And he answered the phone, and I told him I knew I hadn't been into work, but I needed a favor from him. And he says, anything, just name it. And I go, could you come to this hospital? And I named it. And drive my son home and me home, please. My husband is gone, and my daughter's going to have to stay here for a while. And he says, anything. He closed the whole subway down. He went out and he gave free tickets for salads or sandwiches, whatever the people wanted. He wrapped their sandwiches on up. And he took one of the workers, and there was only one worker there other than himself. He brought both of them. She drove me home, and my friend, my best boss in the whole wide world, my best friend in the whole wide world, drove my son home in the van. I really thank God for that. I go and see him. I go and see certain people. And after they had all gotten into the home, certain things came together. I mean, I had about 5 to 6 people in my house other than my son and I that were not blood relatives. They weren't born and raised here in the state of Illinois. We were all transplanted in the state of Illinois, and we came together. And my husband's boss, I called up him because he was going to have to reroute the schedule for my husband, and I had to let him know that he wasn't going to be coming in any longer. And he said to me, do you want my wife on over there? And I go, send her. She came, and she was not born and raised here in the state of Illinois either. I mean, we all were transplants from another state. Needless to say, I picked out the best person out of all of those ladies that night, and that was her. She stayed the night with me. My son tried sleeping upstairs, and then he decided he couldn't sleep up there. He tried sleeping on the couch. And then all of a sudden he says, Mom, can I come and sleep on the floor by you? And I go, you don't have to sleep on the floor by me. You can come and sleep right beside Mommy. And so he was right beside me, and I was in the middle. My husband's boss's wife was on one side of the bed, and I was in the middle. And lo and behold, my son was on the other side. One moment we were bawling our eyes out, and the next minute we were laughing because my husband's boss's wife thought to herself, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be able to say someday to my grandkids I was in bed with another woman and a young teenage boy." And my son was only 14, and my son was laughing because he was thinking, "I'm in bed with 2 older ladies." Needless to say, he'd been in bed with 2 cougars. But you gotta admit, there's always a little laughter at the end of the day. And by this time, yeah, I had relatives of my husband's down here by 8 o'clock at night, and my parents were down here by 10 o'clock. So it's been a long time, but I have never forgotten how to do the rib spreading. I've done 12 CPR victims. I've done quite a few babies that I've delivered. But that night really that was a lot of laughter, I'll tell you, in a way. But the next morning, the manager, the lady that I tried to get a hold of first, she was at the house. She had a box of donuts and she chain smoked. It was so funny because she had an ash on her cigarette like that. And all I can remember is the hug she gave me. I just thank God for the people who have walked into my lives and put footsteps upon my heart. Shannon, I know you're on Facebook with me. There are certain people. I know Tim, and I've been praying for you. You have phone calls also. But as time went along, things were a little rough, but you came to grips with certain things. And it's sort of good to get it off in your chest. I've been on YouTube since 2019. On Facebook, there's another lady or young girl by the name of Linda that she's got light blonde hair. I used to chaperone her at Redeemer Lutheran Church. So I have been on YouTube since 2019, and I used to write so much. I my fingers would just fly like birds almost. But then I took typing in high school and doing the other work in the TV networks. You had to have fingers that flew, but it does help out. And when when the blonde-haired Linda came across the first time several years ago, when I saw her and I extended a friendship thing out to her, she says, "How do I know you?" And I go, "Redeemer Lutheran Church. Hey, yous guys." And she goes, "Linda." So you see, there's people that we all meet, and I'm thankful for meeting all of yous. And like I said, we all place footsteps upon our hearts, each other's hearts, and it helps out. I go by what Jimmy Houston says: don't let the day make you. You turn around and make the day. And I've always been brought up speaking in college. I took all of the speech courses that I possibly could. And as my father taught me, that when you end a speech, you end it in a lighter note. So, what I want you all to remember out there is that we all put footsteps upon each other's hearts, no matter if we've met one another or not. We hear each other's giggles, we hear each other's laughters. We look into each other's eyes, and it helps out quite a bit as you go along the line. My daughter never came back to the home afterwards. She was gone. She still walks the earth, but she only stayed overnight a couple of nights here at the house. It was hard to have her in the house, but we're coming more and more to grips with how thankful we are to be alive. She's almost 50 years old. And yeah, we just keep on thanking God that we have one another to lean on. I have been through strokes, seizures. I drive, but I drive a car, but I drive a van, but I drive people nuts too, right, Shannon and Tim? I never forgot Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Tim, Tiny Tim sang that song, so I mean, that's why I always say that to you, Tiny Tim. So, but I I try to end things on a lighter note. I didn't think of coming and breaking down and crying or anything like that, but it's just this is part of my life, part of me. Each person has a different road that we all walk. I have held children or teenagers as they have taken their last breath and then had to tell their parents in the same church that I went at. But I always had to make sure that it was on a lighter note and to spend time with them to make sure that they were okay. And I was always there for them every day or week as the year went by in that first year. The lady who spent the first night with me and my son in bed, that still brings me giggles. Uh, she came to my house one winter day and I was shoveling snow. We had had a lot of snow that year. And she and her two daughters had some socks for me, and they called them crazy socks. And to this day, I still have those socks and I still wear those socks. And if you saw those, Tiny Tim and Shannon, you would go, oh my God, they're bright. I mean, they've got flowers, they've got orange, they're there's 3 pairs and I mean, they're purple, there's orange, and there's bright red. And sometimes I'd go into work at Subway afterwards on my day off, and I would have one orange one and one purple one on. And my boss would go, Lynn, you've got you've got two different socks on. And I go, oh, I've got another pair just like that at home, I betcha. And it was just really cool because he never sent me back home to change socks. But you gotta admit, that's pretty cool, huh? But I've been a pretty active person in the youth, in the church, and since 2020 happened, it's about the only time that I haven't gone into church. And as I used to do at Redeemer, I used to dust the pews, vacuum the floors. In fact, the minister that one night I opened up the church because I needed to pray. And I took my sleeping bag with me, and I was before the altar, and he was working on his sermon, and he didn't know I was there. I had parked in a different spot. And he almost went over me. He says, "Linda, somebody could have broke in here and done something to you." And I says, "But God is here. He would have waylaid him. And if God didn't do it, I would have done it to him." And we had a good laugh about it. He says, "What about the kids at home?" And I go, "Well, I'll be going home and making a pot of coffee for the husband." And at that time, my husband was alive. So you see, things are really looking up good for this day. A whole lot better, isn't it? I love you an awful lot, Shannon. You and Sherry are both the squad sisters. And Tiny Tim, you've got a name. And whenever I see your name pop up, I'm thinking of the Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Now, you gotta admit, that's pretty hilarious to be able to have uh, something so traumatic where it goes from a family of 4 down to 2 in one day, that you can bring it on up and make it as a little happiness. I mean, used to have heard the story, and I've already called up that lady and I have thanked her like I do every single time. I thank her for gracing my bed and making my son and I laugh. And she says, "Well, it wasn't just you laughing. We were all laughing because I've got grandbabies that are laughing now because of that one night." And I'm going, that's the way things are supposed to be. So, whatever you do in life, you reach out, hug your loved ones. And I know, Tiny Tim, you're going through some pretty hard stuff right now. But when you go through those days, you're going to find out that there's a lot of laughter also. You lean in, you grab those hugs. Tiny Tim, Psalm for me is 139, the whole chapter. That is my life. You read it, and that is me. There was 4 ministers who heard about it, and they did something on YouTube on 139. And they said, "It's awfully dark and dismal towards the end, but all in all, I know where I'm going to be going. And I've already been to heaven once. I was up in heaven the day my son was born. But God told me I had more things, more important things to do down here in this earth that He had created. I got to see my grandpa and my Aunt Joanne, but I got to come back and I got to hold my baby boy and raise him upright and raise my daughter on upright. So, and with my daughter, I delivered her first child. And she asked me when she had her second child if I would come over and deliver the baby. She had that much confidence in her mom to deliver it. But that was in 2008, and I had had foot surgery, and I had a cast on, which meant it was on sterile in a delivery or an operating room. I've done a lot of work, huh, Shannon and Tiny Tim? I memorize a lot of stuff. In fact, when I go into a live chat, if I have my eyes open and I'm listening, I am memorizing every single little bit that comes across. I have a photographic memory, more or less. So, there's a lot of stuff, huh? Oh, I've only learned how to do the live stream. And your memory is horrible. Well, Shannon, I'll tell you something. When you meet someone, look them in the eyes, listen to their voice, watch their whole face, say their name 3 times in that time that you're talking to them in the very beginning of introduction to them. It's like, hello there, Shannon. How are you? It's a beautiful day out there, isn't it, Shannon? We had snow, Shannon, yesterday, and we had some flurries today. Did you have any flurries? And I bet you anything, I could come and tell you exactly what we talked about the first time we met and other things. And you have to watch out for that big spider, right, Shannon? That's really a nifty one. That's one thing. It's the beginning of your Shannon. But I do sleep more as I get older, too. There's times that I sleep more and more, and I sleep deeper and deeper. Oh, Walt. Peterson. Oh, you're kidding. Another Linda Peterson. I sure hope she doesn't have a YouTube channel because I've come across quite a few of them. So I I can remember who my first boss was, and he gave me my job on the beach in a concession stand. So I've always been in a concession stand or working with youth or nature. I'm a great one for that. You're going to have to find, Shannon, you're going to have to find a snake that's going to pop on up out of the woodwork for Roger. You got to admit, that's kind of cool, huh? But you think about it, and it's my husband was cremated, and I've only got 8 minutes left, and he would be completely gone then. So, but the doctor that said that he was no longer here is an SON. So I got to serve him in the cafeteria after I got a job at the hospital. The father, the priest, got me a job there. You didn't know I had a YouTube channel? Well, you ought to see all of the other ones that I've posted. I I go under just to talk. Today I added a little extra about the date because it's really a little harder to go through. Well, how do I sound all right, Shannon and Tim? Is the video all right? I didn't know. I didn't want to do it at a TV station. Cool. Bingo. That's the way we do it. But I'm just more or less trying to make it to the 6:30 mark, and then that'll be the cutoff point for me. But all of my Halloween candy that I had bought for Halloween, I kept on buying it by coupons at that time in 1990 because my kids would always go into a bag or two. Well, by the next day, I didn't have any more candy in the house because everybody who had come in had scarfed into the candy, and we started making more and more stuff. But there's good things about the day afterwards also. Like, I could hear the children outside playing on the recess. I can hear the Rolling Green School children out there for lunchtime, and it was warm enough, and the leaves were just like they are now. It was a beautiful time to go. It was his time, and I know he wouldn't have been able to have gone through life if it would have been me. Because my son used to say, "Mom, you know what Dad makes me do? He makes me fry a hamburger and do French fries for him." So, you see, there's certain things, and I mean, you're talking about a 14-year-old child. They should be, they should have dad or mom make them supper or lunch or breakfast. So it's different, isn't it? And I don't drink. You wouldn't want to see me drunk or even a little in me. Last time I had half a shot of wine in me. No, my son doesn't live close. It's 4.5 hours away. That's the closest child or blood relative that I've got to me. I almost was tempted in going on up north, but then I thought, if I do, I know I would be in a bar, and I don't drink. I have a Coke and a smile. When I worked at the hospital for 17 and a half years, I always would go in half an hour to an hour early. And the priest, he used to get a big kick out of it because he'd go, "I'll buy you your Coke and a smile today." And that we would have a chuckle about that. My my daughter lives in Tennessee. So you see, there's there's a lot of things that I have done in life that a lot of yous would probably go, "I don't think I could ever do that." But yeah, you can. But I do it, and my son lives up north, and they're having some more snow than what I've been having. And it's a whole lot colder up there. But I do like going on up there. I've got several bars that I like going to, and I have fun. I'm known as Snow White up there. And if I find somebody that I think is really special, I give them a special nickname. And when they have that nickname, it's stuck for life. There's even a weather announcer on TV that works up there in that town, and I see him off and on, and it's really nice. He's Mr. Sunshine to me. I worked with him at a TV station down here. But I'm going to let you guys go. I thank you for listening to me. I hope it wasn't all gloom or doom. So, just remember this. My husband's boss's wife was in bed with me with my son. That was kind of cool. God bless you. Good night. Have sweet dreams. And Timmy, I'm praying for you. And if Roger's around, Shannon, just give him a big hug and say, here's a snake in your pocket. It comes from Linda Peterson. So I'm going to let you go, okay? You take care. Bye bye.